Welcome back in after a nice month of relaxation after the Euros and Copa America. Preseason football is done and dusted. The Premier League is back this weekend. The trials and tribulations of a basically 9.5 month season are ahead of us, which of course means top of the Perch is back for its second season. We're going to start out with just a off-season overview of everything that has happened with Tottenham Hotspur since the last time they kicked a football, which was, of course, on the final day of the season. I believe it was at Sheffield United, who were very much relegated by that point, but I digress. We are here. It's going to be year 2 under Ange Postecoglou's system. It's going to be very different from what last year was, with the addition of European football, with the disastrous things they're doing with European football. We get to test run that this year. It's going to be a very different year for Tottenham Hotspur. I think this is going to be a year where the club is really going to be tested to its limits, and hopefully it ends in glory. Given Tottenham Hotspur, it won't, but let's just get into it. So let's first start off with the business that Tottenham Hotspur have done this summer. So let's first take a look at who has come in. And of course, this is as of August 14th. The transfer window closes on the 31st, which means there is still going to be time for people to be brought in and go out. But this is what we have as of now. We welcome in Lucas Bergvall. He was initially purchased last year, sent back on loan to Doomsgarden in Sweden for the rest of last season. So this is technically his first season in the Lily White shirt, central midfielder. He has had a very good preseason warming up into the season. I think he's going to be a key player for Ange Postecoglou's squad this year. Last year, he was purchased at £8.5 million. Definitely is going to be interesting to see how he, develops into this midfield, because I don't think he's a starter on day one, but he is still a very crucial, player you can get off as a sub. And with the addition of, European Cup competitions, you get maybe some starts in there. It's going to be interesting to see how Postecoglou uses him, because I think he has the opportunity to be a very good midfielder for this Tottenham Hotspur squad this year. Another midfielder brought in this summer. This was one of the first businesses of the year. It was bringing in Archie Gray, the central midfielder from Leeds, for a somewhat hefty price tag of £35.3 million for, I believe, an 18-year-old. 18 or 19-year-old, somewhere around there. But he has very much impressed, same alongside Bergvall this summer in these warm-up matches. I'm interested because he does kind of feel like he's going to be somewhat like Bergvall. He's not going to step right into the starting 11 in this midfield. I think he's got the better opportunity to do it than Bergvall does. But if he's coming off the bench, I think that is still very, very good business. Again, the price tag is a bit steep, but for a player of his talent at his age, I have to believe that this will be a very good deal down the line when we look at it in the future. And the biggest one, the newest one, is Dominic Solanke, the center forward, so a striker from Bournemouth, breaks the club transfer record fee, £65 million. This finally does feel like we've got a Harry Kane replacement. You can't replace Harry Kane, the person, but you can replace him in the aggregate. And I think that's what we're trying to do here. Of course, there were a lot of connections this summer between, Ivan Toney, Solanke. You could throw in like 3 other strikers that I feel like were mentioned with Tottenham Hotspur this summer. it seems that Solanke has been the one settled on, obviously, since he's been purchased. The club record fee does worry me a bit because if you look at some of the other club record fees, it's like Ndombele, Brendan Johnson. I know we still gotta give him time, but I feel like there was one other name thrown. Oh, Giovanni Lo Celso. I think he was one of them. It just spending that much money. It's not great, but also the fact that the club record transfer signing is £65 million, especially in this economy, that does say a bit much about how Tottenham is a little cheap. But hey, we spend it fiscally. I don't know if that's the way to go in this future of football that we are having, but we'll see. And then the final signing, we'll see him again in a minute when we get to the loan outs, because this is a very similar to a Lucas Bergvall deal. Same thing we did with Popstar. Min Hook Yang, I hope I said that right, a right winger from Gangwon FC in South Korea. The purchase was just around £3.4 million. I believe he is 18 years old currently. He is supposedly one of the best players in the South Korean league at this moment. So this feels like it's a long-term business decision for the club and, a long-term Son replacement for the club, with all the money that Son brings in with that, Asian and South Korean market. This does somewhat feel like that. But if he turns out to be like what everybody thinks he's going to be, that's going to be huge for the club. A right winger is something the club is kind of in need of right now. Obviously, he's still years away from being that player, but this is still good business at the front end of his career. So, like I said, only 4 players, and it's technically 3 players, have been brought in so far. Still looking, probably to get. The rumors are another right back, probably, maybe, who knows. Probably a winger. I wouldn't be surprised if they bring in another winger. I think it all depends on who leaves this club the rest of the summer, because I've already seen the reports. That's going to dictate it. If we bring in money, we'll spend the money. If we don't sell anybody, we're not buying anybody, which isn't the way to run a club, but here we are. So let's take a look at our farewells for now. These are all the players that obviously have been loaned out, and as you see, Min Hook Yang has been loaned out for 6 months. He comes to Tottenham Hotspur on January 1st, 2025. Now, if we take a look at some of the players that you're used to, Alejandro Velez has been loaned out to Espanyol in Spain for 1 year. He will obviously come back at the end of that. I do not believe there is any buy clauses on that. I think this is just a straight up loan. Brian Heel, however, I believe there is some weirdly worded buy clause on this 1 year loan deal to Granollers. I believe they have right of first refusal for a £15 million fee. Now, of course, that will be decided at the end of the year. Heel needs time to play. Hopefully this is the place to get that, but we'll obviously see what happens there. And then the youngster, Dane Scarlett, has been loaned out to Oxford United for 1 year. They are in the Championship in England, so the second tier, right below the Premier League. But he also is kind of one that needs play time. It feels like he is starting to fall behind, especially in the striker hierarchy at Tottenham Hotspur. It seems like Will Lancashire has jumped him in that. Now, Lancashire could very well go out on loan this season. I'm kind of expecting him to go out on loan. I'm expecting Donnelly to also go out on loan. I would be quite surprised if neither of them go out on loan. I think there's only one or two youngsters that Postecoglou will potentially implement in the first team this year. And I think the rest of them end up getting loaned out. Obviously, we will see what happens with that. There's still a lot of time to get deals done. But for now, these are the players that have been loaned out. Now let's see our farewells for good. We have seen 6 players depart from the club this season so far. Emerson Royale is the most recent one. £15 million to AC Milan in Italy. Emerson, I'm going to miss him. He was a great guy. Not great on the field, but he was a great guy in the locker room. I'm going to miss him. Joe Rodon has gone to Leeds for a £10 million fee. This was separate, but also part of that RG Gray deal. Rodon, I believe he was on a loan at Leeds last year, of course. They obviously wanted to keep him, and they got that deal done for £10 million. Pierre-Emile Højbjerg goes to Marseille. Now, it is technically a 1-year loan with a £17 million obligation to buy at the end of that season. So he is gone. He's just technically a loan for right now. But he will be a Marseille player for the future. An absolutely outstanding player under Antonio Conte, under Jose Mourinho. But he just doesn't fit, the Postecoglou system. And, he's a great player for this club. It's just, it wasn't going to work out in the end. Maybe one of the biggest failures in Tottenham Hotspur history, and I'm not talking about him specifically. I'm talking about more the deal to get him and then everything that preceded it, because I do believe there's still talent there, but it's just a fact of if he actually, wants to use it. Tanguy Ndombele had his contract ripped up. He was, contract terminated. He had to choose where he goes. So this was a free deal to Nice in France. I hope nothing but the best for him. I hope he can refine his form that he had prior to coming to Tottenham Hotspur. It didn't seem like he could gain that at any of his loan spots. Hopefully a move to Nice is what he needs to get his career rejuvenated. Ryan Sessegnon, his contract just expired at the end of the year. He goes to Fulham on a free. Player that just never seemed to, get over injuries. It seemed like as soon as he was back, he was injured again. Just never truly got a chance. I didn't think he was going to end up turning out to, be an outstanding player, but it still wish him nothing but the best at Fulham, and hopefully he can regain the form that he had at Fulham prior to coming to Tottenham Hotspur. And Japhet Tanganga, he also leaves on a free deal this summer as his contract expired at the end of the year. He was on a loan to Millwall last year. Millwall loved him. Millwall signed him to a permanent deal. I wish nothing but the best for him. I thought he was going to be quite good for us. He just truly never, it felt like, got a real shot. So that wraps up all the comings and goings of players so far this summer. I do wish we have done a bit more business. I do think, having a Euro and Copa America thrown in there definitely does not help the transfer window because you just have players that don't want to move at the time, and then they get back, and it just, by the time they get back, we're already into preseason, it feels like. So I still would like to see a bit of business done before the closing of this window. I just don't think it's going to happen. I know they're trying to offload Minor Solomon, Giovanni Lo Celso, Sergio Reguilon. There's probably another 3 or 4 players that I'm just completely forgetting about at this moment. But it doesn't seem like there's any concrete deals in place for any of those players. And then, of course, you got all the young players that you want to get loans out for. But, I mean, who knows? It's going to be interesting to see how Tottenham Hotspur play the final, 15 or so days that are left in this transfer window. So what have Tottenham Hotspur done in the preseason? It hasn't been the greatest of preseasons. It could be a lot worse, but let's take a look at what they've done. In the opening match of the preseason, they traveled up to Scotland to play Hearts, get a 5-1 victory with Brendan Johnson, Will Lancashire, Mikey Moore, Jed Spence, and an own goal from Nielsen. Give them the 5. Let me tell you, Jed Spence, it seems like he has had a turnaround this summer. Coming back from his loan, he was in Italy. It seems like that may have finally re-got his career on track. Pascago seems to love the way he's looking this preseason. I'm hopeful because, you make signings like that and then they don't pan out. And it's like, why did we do that? But now it seems like it's turning around and this may actually turn out to be a, good deal. I'm hoping that this can carry over into the season because we're going to get to it in a second. Fixture congestion is going to be a huge deal this year. He is going to need to step up big. Second game of the preseason was at Loftus Road in London as Tottenham defeated Queen's Park Rangers 2-0. Yves Bissouma gets a goal in the first half. Dane Scarlett, of course, the now Oxford United player, loanee technically, gets a goal to close out the game. Tottenham walk away with a 2-0 victory. Tottenham then hop on a plane and head to the other side of the world where they take on Vissel Kobe in Japan. Tottenham walk away with a 3-2 victory in that one. They go behind 1-0 early, but Pedro Porro scores in the 16th minute. Heung-min Son scores right after half to make it 2-1. Vissel would score to make it 2-2, and it would be Mikey Moore scoring the game-winning goal in the 88th minute. He just signed his first professional contract with the club last Sunday. I think he is going to be one of a very few young youth players that Pascagoula will lean on this season. I am excited to see how he develops. He could be, the next great Tottenham player coming straight out of our academy, and I am really hopeful that that is the case. Tottenham then get on a plane from Japan, go to South Korea to play the K-League All-Stars, and they get a 4-3 victory here. I should say that Min-hyuk Yang played for those K-League All-Stars. He looked really good against us, so that is very hopeful that he will be, of course, good for us. But Tottenham get a 4-3 victory. Dejan Kulusevski scores in the 29th minute to give Tottenham a 1-0 lead. Heung-min Son scores in the 37th and in first half stoppage time to make it 3-0 going into the half before, the K-League All-Stars score 2 in 2 minutes to make it 3-2. Will Lancashire makes it 4-2, and K-League All-Stars would score one more goal in the 81st minute, and that would get you your 4-3 final score. Will Lancashire, I think, is the other player that will probably be leaned on youth talent-wise this season. Another player coming up from our academy. Kind of looks like a Harry Kane regen. Hopefully that's the case. I'm really hopeful for the two players that are coming from our academy this year because it feels like everybody else is probably getting loaned out. And then in the final match of the South Korean tour, they take on Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich walk away with a 2-1 victory. Pedro Porro, the only goal scorer in this game. And then they come back to North London. On Saturday it was, I believe, Harry Kane's return to North London. He did not travel with the team to South Korea, but he returns in North London. Looked like he had a few... I should say, Eric Dyer also returned. I feel like a lot of people overlooked that, and I just did too. But Eric Dyer was a servant to this club for 10 years, so he also deserves his flowers of returning to North London. But it would be those two walking away with the 3-2 victory in the Visit Malta Cup. Dejan Kulusevski scored like 30 seconds into this game to give Tottenham a 1-0 lead, but Umanekto scores in the 16th. Serge Gnabry scores in the 31st. And Thomas Müller scores right before half. And it was 3-1 going into the half. Kulusevski gets a second goal in the 63rd. But that would not be enough, of course, as it ends in a 3-2 final. So that's what's happened this preseason. Again, not the greatest of results, but you truly have only been tested by Bayern Munich. And I don't expect to be competing with Bayern Munich right now, honestly, in this phase of the rebuild. I know a few other people were, but I just don't expect it. So, given that, let's take a look at what's ahead this year, because this is just insane, this scheduling. So, Tottenham kick it off on Monday night. They are the last team against Leicester City on the road. They're last two teams to kick off the Premier League season. They then come back on Saturday or Sunday, I don't know, to face off against Everton at home in the opening match of the season. And then they go off to Newcastle, get that St. James Park trip out of the way early this season. And then we go on international break. We come back from international break. It is Arsenal at home. Feels like that has been the spot for the Arsenal match the past few years, is coming out of that September break, except it's usually at, the Emirates. But here we are. And then right after that, you go into Carabao Cup third round action. This can technically, I think they said it can be the week of the 17th or the week of the 23rd. Given that Europa League match day 1 is on the 25th, I highly doubt we will be playing the week commencing the 23rd. I very much expect it to be that the 17th, 18th, or 19th that the third round of the Carabao Cup will be taking place. Then Tottenham have a home game against Brentford before that aforementioned Europa League match day 1. Of course, there are no more group stages in the Europa League. It is just 10 games. 8 games, I should say. You're going to have 4 home, 4 away. You're not going to play the same opponent twice. It's a convoluted system, but here we are. And then you go to Manchester United, close out September before starting October with the second match day in the Europa League, before closing out against Brighton before the October window for international games. Come back from that against West Ham United at home, and then we're back in the Europa League on the 24th. The 27th, we travel to Selhurst Park away to face off against Crystal Palace, and then this is your potential Carabao Cup fourth round. Coming out of that, it's Aston Villa at home, a Europa match in there, and then Ipswich Town at home also before you get into the November break. You come back, you have City away, and then you go into your 5th Europa League match day before closing out November with a home game against Fulham. You go into December, you start at the Vitality Stadium against Bournemouth, then you are at home against Chelsea before going into your 6th Europa League match day. That will be your last Europa League match day of the calendar year before you travel to Southampton on the road. Then you have a potential Carabao Cup quarterfinal game on the 17th of December before traveling home, maybe. Who knows? You may have a quarterfinal game at home, but you have Liverpool, and of course, the start of the festive fixtures here. You go to Forest away on Boxing Day, Wolves at home on the 29th, and then to start 2025 on the 4th will be Newcastle United. On the 7th or 8th, I believe technically, will be your potential Carabao Cup semifinal first leg before the FA Cup gets underway for Tottenham Hotspur. That will be on the weekend of the 11th. Coming back from that will be your return trip. You will be headed to the Emirates to face off against Arsenal. And then you travel to Goodison Park for the final time ever as they move to the Bramley Moordock Stadium next season to face Everton away. You get your 7th Europa League match day in there. You get your match against Leicester City on the 25th, probably will be flexed to the 26th, and your final match day of the Europa League will come on the 30th of January. You move into February. You have Brentford away. You have a potential second leg of a Carabao Cup semifinal. And right after that, you have a potential fourth round matchup in the FA Cup. And then right after that is your Europa League knockout first leg. Now, if Tottenham Hotspur finish, I believe it is top 8 of the whole table of the Europa League, they will not be participating in the knockout. If they finish 9th to 24th, they will be participating in the knockout. Given the history of Tottenham Hotspur, I'd put a bet on them taking place in the knockout because that just seems like something they would do. So smushed in between your two legs of knockout stage action is Manchester United at home before you travel to Portman Road for the first time in, I believe, almost a quarter century to face off against Ipswich Town before facing off against Manchester City at home. You get into March, you have your potential FA Cup 5th round game, followed by Europa League round of 16 first leg. Then you have Bournemouth squished in between the second leg there. And then on the 15th, as of now, is the Fulham match away. The 16th would be the Carabao Cup final. So if Tottenham qualify for that Fulham game obviously gets moved. But no matter what, either the Fulham game or the FL Cup final, that will be the final match before the March international break. Coming out of that break would be a potential FA Cup quarterfinal. You can see here the fixture congestion is just absolutely insane here. It is so bad, especially when you get February to May. If you are winning your competitions, it is just an absolute nightmare. Because if you look at April, of course, all these dates are subject to change. I think I mentioned that earlier, but I'm just going by what we have right now. On the 2nd, you would be at Chelsea away. The 5th, you'd be at Southampton home. The 10th, you're in the Europa League quarterfinal potentially, leg 1. So you could be at home. You could be in, the middle of nowhere. And then on the 12th, but given, Europa League, it probably turns into the 13th. You're at Wolves away. Before the 17th is your second leg of the quarterfinal. So once again, you could be at home. You could be in the middle of nowhere. The 19th, you are at Nottingham Forest home. The 26th, you are either going to be in an FA Cup semifinal or Liverpool away, depending, of course, if Tottenham or Liverpool make it that far, because that game can get moved out if Liverpool make it and Tottenham don't. Then you get into May, and this is just where it gets silly. Your potential Europa League semifinal would be May 1st and May 8th. Those are your two legs. You have West Ham away mixed in there. Then you have Crystal Palace at home on the 10th. On the 17th is a potential FA Cup final. On the 18th would be Aston Villa. Of course, that would get moved if, either team are in the FA Cup final. On the 21st is your Europa League final. And finally, on the 28th, you close out the season at home for the first time in what seems like forever, and you are facing off against Brighton. The fixture congestion is just absolutely insane this year. I don't know why we're doing away with group stage games. We're doing group stage games. Why we're doing away with groups in the Europa League. It is beyond baffling what we are doing here. The Swiss model is just disgusting. Whatever. The more money UEFA gets is all that truly matters in the end. And why should we be the ones to question when UEFA keeps getting that money in their pocket? So it's going to be a long, grueling season if Tottenham Hotspur win, all their competitions the way, they progress on. March, April, May are just going to be grueling. Especially if you're competing for a Champions League spot or, heaven forbid you're competing for the title. It's going to be a grueling time for Tottenham Hotspur, It's probably why they drop out of the competition sometime before the quarterfinal, if we're honest. That's probably what's going to happen. But we've just passed over the 30-minute mark, so I'm going to wrap up this, off-season review for Tottenham Hotspur. So thank you so much for watching. If you just stumbled across Top of the Perch, make sure you hit subscribe. The season's just getting rolling. Tomorrow I'll do a Premier League preview. We got a new face this year. The rest of the promoted teams were here 2 years ago. So we'll do the Premier League preview then, but thank you so much for watching. We will see you back again soon for another episode of Top of the Perch. Make sure you like, subscribe, tell anybody you know about it. Thank you so much for watching.